The grabber is back, but is he better than ever? This weekend, I got the chance to see The Black Phone 2, and I decided for the third episode of Trick or Treat that we should review it. Spoilers will be included, so if you want to see this film, I recommend coming back later. If you do not care, well, buckle in. I will be using the 5 S's to determine whether it is a trick or a treat. If you want to know how it works, I have a video right above explaining it. Black Phone 2 is set 4 years after the first film. We have Finney Blake, who is the victim of the guy every parent fears, the grabber. The guy is your average Colorado man who drives a black van, carries black balloons, and collects kids like Thanos. Finney was able to break free when he used a black phone to communicate with the dead victims who attempted to escape but failed. One of the victims, Robin, who was sort of friends with Finney because he protected him from bullies, would also help him to kill the grabber. It ends up working out, meaning the grabber is dead, so why is there a sequel? Black Phone 2 is a little different as the story is more focused on Gwen, Finney's sister. She was a standout in the first film for not only having the mouth of a blue collar,
fucking cocksucking coward,
but was a big help with finding the grabber. Gwen has the ability to have dreams about past and future events, sort of like astral projection, except she is given clues to use in reality. She was able to see how the grabber took the victims, which sounds like a useful ability to possess, but the dreams become too real. The gift comes from her mother, Hope, who had similar visions. Black Phone 2 opens with her speaking to an anonymous voice on the phone. We don't know who it is, but it sets up the creepy tone of the film. The scene turns out to be a flashback from the year 1957 as we cut to 1982, where Finney is not handling the trauma of the grabber well as he spends his days being the shit out of people and
smoking that loud.
Gwen continues to have these hyper-real dreams where she sees a group of 3 boys from a wintry Christian camp be killed by an anonymous figure. Like the last film, these dreams gave her many clues to something larger. Each of the boys appear to be submerged in the bottom of a frozen lake where they would rise and write a letter into the ice. She also sees flashes of the grabber in his basement, along with his dead brother who got chopped like a log at the end of the first one. These are not just dreams. Gwen is sleepwalking and taking herself to these locations such as the grabber's basement. Before she can get too deep in these dreams, Finney is there to wake her up. The dreams drive her crazy and causes her to investigate, and she finds out that the camp these boys were killed at is called Alpine Lake. Gwen makes it a mission to go out there and find out what happened to these boys, and when telling Finney, he dismisses her, but overhearing the conversation is their dad, who reveals that Hope worked there. Gwen convinces Ernesto, Robin's younger brother, to join her, and the only way you can get someone to go to an abandoned camp with you is if they're madly in love with you. When Gwen is about to leave, Finney decides to join along, and when they all arrive at the camp, they discover that they are going to be trapped for a few days due to the harsh blizzard. We also find out that the 3 of them are the only kids at the camp, but will be accompanied by 4 other members. Each night, bizarre shit continues to happen as Gwen has more vivid dreams about the boys and continues to wake up from sleepwalking. At the camp, there is a telephone booth, and the phone keeps ringing according to Finney, and when he picks up, all he hears is nothing but static. It is not until a few phone calls later that the grabber appears to be on the other side. Finney finds out that he's alive in the dream form and is plotting to get revenge on him by killing Gwen. Meanwhile, she has another dream where she is being chased by the grabber and is led into the kitchen of the camp. The grabber ends up getting a hold of Gwen and begins to violently attack her. Finney wakes everyone up to go save her, and they find her in the kitchen being thrown around like a rag doll by an invisible Freddy Krueger-like figure. Finney and Ernesto are able to pull her away from the grabber and wake her up. Now this is a Christian camp, and seeing a child being thrown around by a visible ghost brings much concern, and so everyone meets up in the church. As everyone discusses, the leader of the camp, Armando, shows a picture from a while ago containing someone who looked just like the grabber. Armando talks about the man in the photo as the maintenance guy for the camp, who is also known as Wild Bill Hickok. Gwen puts 2 and 2 together and realizes WBH is what that stood for, and that these boys were the first victims as the photo is from sometime before 1978, the year Finney and the other boys were abducted. In order to stop the grabber, they must free the souls, and they all work together to go dig up the bodies in the bottom of the frozen lake. Before they can find them all, Gwen has one more dream where the grabber wants to give her one more gift. She sees visions of Billy, who is the paper boy who got abducted in the first film, but the vision actually comes from Hope. Hope is seen waking up in the middle of the night to go to the grabber's house. She looks in the basement and sees Billy, and before she can go get help, the grabber throws her in the van. The whole time, Gwen is following Hope, and she ends up going into the van. She talks to the grabber in there, and when he stops the van, he opens up the door to show Hope hanging by a noose in the garage. Turns out he made it look like she killed herself, and the dad was the first to discover the body, not knowing otherwise. Gwen wakes up in heartbreak, but this determines her to stay at the camp to find the bodies and take down the grabber. Terrence, Gwen and Finney's dad, arrives at the camp with a snowplow offering to bring the kids home. Gwen stands down, driving Finney and Terrence crazy, but she reveals to them that Hope was killed by the grabber. Definitely one of the most emotional scenes from the film, and there, Finney finally comes forth with his trauma, admitting that he has been suppressing the whole situation because all he thinks about is the grabber. Everyone decides to stay and help to find the bodies, which is where we reach the finale. The grabber is powerless when the bodies are discovered, as he is not able to trap them in hell, which is in fact this frozen place where he consumed the souls in order to gain more power to affect events in reality. When Gwen discovered the bodies at the end of the first one, he lost all of his power, and the same applies here, and Finney and her are able to take down his spirit and leave him frozen at the bottom of the lake for good. Everyone seems to have made it out alive, and before they leave for the camp, the phone from the booth rings. Gwen ends up picking up the phone, and it is revealed that Hope was trying to communicate with her from the other side, which makes for a great ending. Black Phone 2 is completely an original story this time around, as the first film is based on Joe Hill's short story. There was never any plans for Scott Derrickson to make a sequel, but when the Black Phone was released in 2022, movie theaters were coming back from COVID, and this ended up being a smash hit, earning $161 million worldwide on a budget of about $20 million. Derrickson agreed to return for a sequel, along with his co-writer C. Robert Cargill. The two of them wrote a pretty solid script. It seems that the only way to bring the grabber back was making him a Freddy Krueger-like figure, and it helped that the first film set up supernatural elements with Gwen's dreams, making her the absolute main character of this film, which works so well as she was such a great part of the first film. Madeline McGraw gives such a stellar performance again. In The Black Phone, we see her on the more dominant side, as she is not the victim of the grabber, and whenever anyone tries to mess with her, she takes them down. This time around, she is a victim of the grabber, and we see her go through the pain and trauma that Finney went through. In this one, I think she suffers more, as the grabber puts more physical force on her, as well as more psychological tormenting when he shows her mother being killed. However, she continues to prove why she has this special gift, and through her strength and courage, she takes down the grabber. All of her emotion is displayed perfectly, whether she is crying, cussing up a storm, or being an absolute badass. The best Ring character, no doubt, but another character we get to see have an interesting arc is Terrence. In the last film, we saw him be an abusive alcoholic father, and this time around, we see him being a caring father who is sober. He's not there to be any sort of saving grace, but he definitely provides much needed emotional support after finding out about the tragedy of Hope. Finney is more of a side character here. Even though he does get a fair amount of one-on-one moments with the grabber, it's hard for him to really unlock his ability to communicate with the spiritual world besides with the Black Phone. The scene where Gwen, Terrence, and him are outside debating whether or not they should leave is my favorite scene in the whole series, as there's so much pain that stems from this family, and this moment addresses everything that has led up to this moment. We get to see Gwen project her pain on Terrence, as she thinks that he will take physical force again in order for her to listen. Finney is seen vulnerable again, crying just like when he was at his lowest in the grabber's basement, and admits that he's been scared the whole time, and the only way he was able to function was to drown out all the trauma. Mason Thames' acting here really makes me feel for him, and through the script it shows that it's extremely hard to recover from an incident as brutal as what the grabber put him through. Finding out that the grabber killed the mom really provides extra motivation that the siblings needed to put his actions to an end. The grabber is more menacing this time around, as he has lost everything, and now that he's a spiritual entity, it has brought him more power. It's emphasized that he cannot be stopped easily, and the viewer is engaged throughout it as he makes sure that no character is safe, making his actions unpredictable. We are given so much lore about him that connects to the first film really well, and I think that if I go back and watch it, I'm going to be thinking about it differently. The scene where he tells Finney that he just wanted to look at him hits so much harder now, as this is when he finds out that he was the son of Hope, and when he realizes that, it really drives home the point that Finney is such a special victim to him. Ethan Hawke does a great job at playing this twisted killer through both films, and it just really shows why he's an A-list actor. I thought the camp members were going to be there for body count, but I realized that the grabber is not your traditional slasher. Each victim must be used in order to gain some sort of power, and not just for another kill. Barbara was a bitch who maybe some would have liked to see die, but that would be in poor taste, as we do still see her ass get beat. Armando is the father figure of the camp who provides much needed comfort, but I think it would have hit harder if we had him or Terrence die. The grabber already put Gwen and Finney through so much that everyone living provides for a more hopeful ending. It really makes me wonder if they're going to make a third film, and I hope they don't unless it's a prequel, but even then, what would that do to the story besides show how evil the Grabber is? I do think that besides his tormenting of the Blakes, his actions appear to come off safe just because of the fact that he didn't end up killing anyone. I do think that he's the most menacing when he's about to kill Gwen because she is the heart of the film, and there are so many times when it seems like he's going to pull it off. This is where I will glance over the special effects because when Gwen shows that she can use super abilities in the dream to overcome the Grabber, I rolled my eyes a bit with how it was executed. It takes away from the groundedness in this world, even though its supernatural element is prominent. The effects shine when we get scenes such as when the kids are invading Gwen's bunk room. It's so disturbing to see them roam around like zombies, and the fact that these are kids makes it unsettling. One of my favorite effects is when Armando is in the cabin communicating with the radio, where he hears the Grabber, and then he is startled when a figure of his face is smeared with blood and snow on the window. I also think they handled the kitchen scene well, where the Grabber throws around Gwen, and I especially enjoyed how he just fades into the darkness when she wakes up in the real world. Quite scary, which, speaking of scares, this film was terrifying. I'm hearing some word of mouth that this film is not that scary, which I disagree with. The dream sequences put me in a state of fear I never thought I would feel in a film. The way that there is a lack of sound when Gwen gets up in the middle of the night as we see her perspective of what it's like to sleepwalk. The grainy VHS footage, which is shot in Super 8 and 16 cameras, throws the viewer off as we are used to seeing the more clean digital look to now seeing all this noise, which makes the frame not as clear. It does not help that these scenes are dark, so when we see a hallway or a door with some shadow, we cannot clearly tell if there's a figure or not. Its suspense keeps us engaged as there are many symbols in the story that makes us confused, but not to the point where it throws off the momentum of the plot, but reveals to us slowly what is really happening. Despite this film going all in for the supernatural element, it keeps it grounded by focusing on the relationship between Finney and Gwen. They are what made the last film work, and they continue to do it here as well. Even when they are older, they still feel like the young kids being tormented by the trauma in their past, and through their experiences, they share a bond like no other. The Grabber is still scary as there's no change to his appearance except at the end when we see his face get absolutely bashed in where he's almost looking like Freddy Krueger. A little much in my opinion, but it's well deserved after what he put the Blakes through. Is it schlocky? No. It is corny occasionally, such as when Gwen spews out an explicit swear to the Grabber, but that is on par with her character. It just feels out of place when they're trying to have a serious battle. I mean, it's hard to have this whole story actually happen, so to some criticisms, I think some may prefer the more realistic story and setting of the first one. If Derrickson didn't direct this, I think it would have been one of those pointless sequels. I mentioned how Derrickson's script keeps us in suspense, and part of that is with his directing choices. The Super 8 shots of the kids in the camp is the most disturbing part of the film, as the shutter speed, colors, light, and framing creates for a disturbing perspective. We see these boys get stalked and cornered into the middle of the woods, and if the audience tries to imagine themselves in a situation like that, they would be horrified. In the first film, we never get to see the victims get killed by the Grabber, which is part of what keeps the tension in the film, as we are afraid that we are going to see it be done to Finney. Here we see the boys get killed in brutal ways, which I did not expect this film to lean into. It very much reminded me of the kills in Sinister, which are some of my favorite sequences in a horror film, and part of what made those scenes so scary was the score done by Christopher Young. And of course, Gyroscope done by Boards of Canada. How can you forget that? The score, composed by, believe it or not, Derrickson's son, Atticus, is chilling in the Super 8 shot scenes. I guess if your name is Atticus, you sure know how to make a score. Scott Derrickson sure knows how to use different film techniques to really immerse the audience, and part of that is always working with his crew to make sure that they are on the same level. Camera work is great here with the use of dolly movements to capture the atmosphere of each scene. There's great handheld work to really put the viewer at unease. Object framing, such as when we see a character look under a bed, made not just for a pleasing shot, but set up for an absolutely horrifying jump scare. Do not watch it in the Dolby format unless you want to shit yourself. Sound mixing is part of what makes the scares work, so kudos to Atticus and film editor Louise Ford for making the magic come to life. I really didn't know what I was expecting going into the sequel, but I'm here to say that I'm very pleased. I don't think it's a perfect horror film, but some sequences in here are some of my favorite ever in a film, and it's looking to be one of my favorites from 2025. For story, I would give it an 8. Great job at connecting the first one, but also adding a lot more lore into this world. I also found it to be extremely emotional, and there are points that made me want to shed a tear. The only thing is some of its pacing can slow down the momentum built up, and some moments play it safe, but overall, it did a great job at building suspense and keeping me engaged. Scares, I would give it a 7. I think any of the VHS shots absolutely terrified me, but this does not have a lot of jump scares, which is good, but also when there are a few of them, those made my soul leave my body. I think when the finale happens, there isn't much scare factor to it, where we have more of a suspenseful action sequence that can be a little over the top, but gory enough to where I'm still disturbed. Special effects, I will give a 7 to. There's nothing really that stood out. I think it did what it needed to do. I would just prefer less digital effects, but regardless, it didn't look bad. Maybe just too clean at points. Sauce, I would give it an 8. I think Derrickson nailed it with the Super 8 shots, and the setting of the film being chosen, this Arctic hell, made for a suffocating feeling that added to the fear of it. Like I said, if he wasn't directing, it would not have been as interesting as the first, if not at points more. There's maybe 1 or 2 directing gripes I had, such as the choice to use a crash out zoom during a dramatic fight, as well as having a fair amount of digital effects. Calculating everything together, that would make this film score a 31 out of 40, which I would consider a treat, but I will give it a bonus point for making me feel emotion. I would recommend seeing this film if you're a horror fan. I think general audiences will be fine with this film, but confused if you haven't watched the first one because of a lot of its emotional beats build off of what was established in the first. By itself, it has a really strong story, great performances, and bold directing choices to make this a memorable sequel. It's now time to grab some candy. Alrighty, it is time for this episode's candy review. This time, we're going to grab something not random, but I will choose this time the honey roasted peanut M&Ms. Why I chose M&Ms? Well, because you just want to grab a handful of them, just like the fucking grabber. Yeah, okay, I may be Diddy to these M&Ms today, but I ain't going to be Diddy like the grabber.
Oh my god.
Looking at the packaging, looks like we got this kind of orangish honey packaging, kind of like a box of Honey Nut Cheerios. We have, looks like the peanut M&M as the mascot. A missed opportunity to not show the brown M&M, which she's a baddie. Let's get into this bag. And I'm just gonna pour out a few in my hands. Oh God, these boys are big. Look at this. Look. Put this down. Oh, spilled some. Look how big that is. Most of them are just one color. Yellow. Oh God. God damn it, I gotta clean that up later. All right, so I have about 6 of them, and I'm just gonna shove them in my mouth. Actually, I'll just do one, just because I'm not a greedy bitch. Oh, that's a great crunch right there. Typically, I'm not a fan of peanut M&Ms.
If you deliberately sabotage my band, I will fuck you like a pig.
I just like the smallness to regular M&Ms, and these peanut M&Ms, these balls are way too big. It's getting so Diddy here. And no, I'm not allergic to peanuts, so I'm not flaring up right now. I'm just really processing this flavor. I'm gonna put all 4 of them in my mouth. Got a lot more peanut flavor from that. I lied. Not all of them are yellow. There is a few brown ones in here. I think these are better than peanut M&Ms. I kind of like it. Let me call up the jury to determine whether this is a trick or treat. Let's just dial them up right here. Hello? Yes, I am here to determine whether these are a trick or treat. Can you let me know?
Yeah, actually, you stupid bitch. Stop eating all the time on camera. You are clearly gaining so much weight from all this Halloween candy. Go fuck yourself. But if I had to choose if the honey roasted peanut M&Ms are truly a trick or treat, they would actually be a treat because I think they're better than peanut M&Ms. But as far as regular M&Ms, I definitely choose those over that. But regardless,
I would say they're a treat.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your feedback. About the weight comment, that was really rude. But I will continue to eat these because, yeah, they are a treat. Thank you. It was fun watching this one on the big screen, so if you have a chance to see it, give it a shot. I believe that this is the best horror film from 2025, even though I really enjoyed Final Destination and Weapons, though Weapons has not aged as well with me because of how much that film goes back and forth just to get to the point. And Bloodlines was really enjoyable, it just did not scare me the way the Black Phone 2 did, as well as made me feel emotion. More episodes of Trick or Treat to come, so stay tuned and enjoy the ride.